Hello everyone, now we are going to discuss about female urological system. Again, learning about female urological system while studying obstetrics and gynecology is very important because this is an integral part of the obstetrics and gynecology as you explore the gynecological part of this. Okay. We are going to study about the ureter, the bladder and the female urethra. First one, we'll start with the ureters. Now, ureters are the long tubes that start from the lower end of the renal pelvis and it runs all the way downwards to reach the bladder. In the upper half, it is located in the posterior abdominal wall and in the lower half, it is seen within the pelvis. The musculature of the ureter is by the circular fibers in the upper half and by the longitudinal fibers as it enters into the bladder. If we see the course of ureter, so this is the kidney, this is the renal pelvis. First it starts passing downwards like this, then it will enter into the brim of pelvis. As it enters into the brim of pelvis, it is crossed by the external iliac artery and external iliac vein. Then it again descends downwards like this by passing laterally towards the lateral side of the pelvis. This is the bladder and we'll have the uterus also here, right? Now as it descends down, it passes 2 centimeters laterally to the cervix where it will be crossed by the uterine artery. Okay. So at this point you have to keep one term to remember this relation, that is water under the bridge as it passes near the cervix. What is the water? It is nothing but the urine that is contained inside the ureter and the bridge is nothing but the uterine artery. So it is water under the bridge and this gap is around 2 centimeter. Then it turns downwards and enters on both the sides. Okay, both the sides, this is the course. Okay, it takes a turn like this and it comes down and it enters, and this region of entering inside the bladder will be triangular in shape and this is known as trigone. So basically it enters on the lateral borders of the trigone. Another one important landmark what you have to remember is this turn where it takes. The turn where it takes, this curve is at the point of ischial spines. Okay, so these are the important landmarks. Now we'll see the course in a diagram. So this is the ureter. Okay, so this is the ureter basically. So the ureter is coming down. First it is coming straight where it is crossed, it is trying to enter into the pelvis, where it is crossed by the external iliac artery and the vein. Then it enters down and it lies lateral to the cervix where it is crossed by the uterine artery and the vein. This gap is around 2 centimeters. Okay, so another pic to understand this orientation. We have the ureter here coming down where it is crossed by the external iliac artery. It takes a curve here near the ischial spine, then it enters into the bladder at the region of trigone. Now, what is the blood supply of ureter? It is supplied by the ovarian artery, uterine artery and superior vesical artery. Ovarian artery, uterine artery and superior vesical artery. So, this is the ovarian artery and the uterine artery and superior vesical artery. What is the lymphatic drainage? In the upper part, they drain into lateral aortic nodes, and in the lower part, they drain into the common iliac and internal iliac nodes. Next, we are going to see about the bladder. So, this is basically the position of the bladder. So, you have the uterus, anteriorly you will have the bladder and posteriorly you will have the rectum. Okay. So, this is the vagina, that is the pathway to the uterus, and then comes the urethra here. So, basically urethra is closely related to the anterior wall of the vagina. Now, if you take bladder, bladder is a reservoir of urine. Capacity of bladder is about 500 milliliters, whereas the urge to urinate starts when it fills to about 300 milliliters. Generally, bladder is a pelvic organ, but in adults as it gets descended, it may become an abdominal organ, and in infants, it is mostly an abdominal organ. If you see the structure of bladder, it is a tetrahedron shape. You have 4 surfaces, namely, one is the superior surface, which faces upwards. Next one is the posterior surface, or we can call it as the base or fundus. Then you have 2 infralateral surfaces. Infralateral means they face downwards, laterally and forwards. So, this is the bladder. You will have the apex here, and this apex is joined to the umbilicus by urachus remanens, that is the median umbilical ligament. From here, the urethra emerges. There is a depression between the ureter and the bladder. So, this region is known as vesico-uterine pouch. So, this is the structure of the bladder. You will be able to see. So, this is how the ureters are coming. You have a superior surface. These are the 2 infralateral surfaces, and this is the bladder neck. Okay. So, this is the bladder neck region, and here comes the urethra. So, another view, like you have the superior surface, you have the infralateral surfaces, here the ureters are emerging. You will have the median umbilical ligament that is arising from the apex. Okay. Then these are the borders. You have the anterior border, lateral borders and the posterior border. Now coming to urethra. Female urethra is around 4 cm in length, whereas the male urethra is 20 cm in length. As we have already seen, but this is closely related to the anterior wall of vagina. You have two sphincters. This is a narrow membranous canal. Have two sphincters. One is the internal sphincter. Another one is the external sphincter. So, internal sphincter is otherwise known as sphincter vesicae and external sphincter is otherwise known as sphincter urethrae. So, basically this is an involuntary sphincter and this is a voluntary sphincter which we can control. So, this is a picture to show the interior surface of the bladder as well as the relation of the urethra. Basically have the bladder being covered by peritoneum. You have the ureter. Okay, these are some rugosities that is present inside the bladder wall. You have the trigone. Then the muscle of the bladder is known as the detrusor muscle. You will have the bladder neck. Then the internal urethral sphincter being located here, and here you will have the external urethral orifice where you will have the external urethral sphincter. This is the intermediate part of the urethra. Okay, this is the urogenital diaphragm that is supporting the urethra. So, what is the clinical significance of learning this part? So, first, while you are doing any surgeries, there can be injury to the ureter that can happen in 4 regions. The first part is at the pelvic brim. The second part is where it is caused by the uterine vessels in the broad ligament. The third region is near the caudinal ligament, and the fourth region is near the vagina. So, one should be aware of the anatomy of the ureter and its course through the pelvis while doing any surgeries like cesarean section or hysterectomy. Also, the importance of bladder lies in that if it is compressed during obstructed labor, it can lead to pressure necrosis and fistula formation. So, thank you for listening. We'll meet you again in the next video. Until then, see you, take care and bye.